Hi guys, it's Mrs. Everly. I'm going to be teaching you session 2, and in this session we're really going to be talking about revising. So going back to our drafts and rereading them and seeing if we can add any new details to those stories. So if you guys remember, the first step, we brainstormed 5 memories or experiences that we had in the last couple of months that we could then turn into a narrative story. And last week we really focused on taking those memories and then starting to draft those stories. And you were really thinking about what happened, okay? And telling that across your hand and using those details to then draft your story. Now that you guys have drafted or you guys have a full draft done, now part of it is that we're just starting. So there's a saying with writers that you've just begun. So once you've started, we've just begun. And I like to tell my class, Harry Potter books, that J.K. Rowling, who's the author of the Harry Potter books, she said that first Harry Potter book, she wrote 101 times. Okay, so you guys, that means that she sat down for hours at a time and came up with 101 different drafts to that story and different endings. And so she kept on rereading it to try to see if that was the best story to tell. And now, I'm not asking you guys to reread your story 101 times, but we can learn something from J.K. Rowling in that sense that, guess what? We should go back and we should reread our writing. So I'm going to go back to the part of my story. And if you guys remember, my story was when it was my first year as a 4th grade teacher. Mrs. Buskey had come into my room and she just had her hands on her hip and she was screaming at my class for being too loud. And we just looked at her and we're like, we weren't even talking. So to me, because I got yelled at and it was my first year as 4th grade teacher, I was really nervous and I was anxious because I didn't know the material. And so to me, this really stands out and I just keep playing that film in my head over and over again. So the part that I wrote down, I'm gonna read it to you guys. So it says, then the door opened and it was Mrs. Buskey. She told us we were being loud. She told us her students were trying to concentrate. She looked very, very mad. And so you guys, again, I was just looking at my pages and I was flipping through. That seemed to be a part that was the most important part of my story. But it's kind of hard to envision just with the small details that I wrote. So I was trying to think, how could I put some action into the story? And so I was trying to look at some verbs that I could change up. And you guys, again, verbs are the action words that we include. So instead of saying, she opened the door and she came in, maybe I could use the word stormed, that she stormed into my room. Her hands were on her hips. She was angry. You could see that her face was red. And then just thinking about it, and she screamed at my class, "You're being loud. I'm trying to teach. My kids can't listen. They can't learn." So to me, I think I'm missing a lot of parts to this story. So again, when I'm envisioning, when I'm remembering this memory and I keep playing it over and over again, it doesn't match what I wrote down. So by just having those couple sentences, I don't think that my reader can get the full idea of this experience. So this is a part that I want to include some more details. And again, you guys, I'm still drafting. I'm still working on this. But some of the changes that I did change, I think it does help give us some more of a picture, a better picture of what actually happened, in this memory. So I just made some changes. So it says, then Mrs. Buskey stormed in. The class's eyes instantly went to her. Her face was red. Her hands were on her hips. You could tell she was not happy. I instantly stopped reading and looked up at her. We wondered why she looked so upset. So again, you guys, all I did is I took, I had a couple sentences and I just thought about, this isn't enough detail. So I looked at my verbs. I looked at could I use my senses to help me describe the scene a little bit better. So I included details about what her face looked like. What was her bodily actions? What did it look like? What was I doing? What was I thinking? What was the class thinking? So again, you guys, just by including some of those details, you're making your story better and you're also helping your reader envision what actually happened at that time. So today, friends, your assignment is to reread your writing. So reread your first draft. And what I want you guys to do is find an important part of that story and ask yourself, could I add more detail to it? Could I help my reader envision more of what happened? So could you use your senses to describe more of the things that are going on? And then I want you guys to redraft it. So if you guys look, I did my first section in pencil and then I made some of the changes in pen. To me, that helps me realize some of the changes that I made because it's in a different color. So you could do that in colored pencil, you could do it in pen, you could do it in marker, but that helps me realize that this part I already redrafted, and that is a part that I know that I really looked at to revise. All right, goodbye you guys.